Hey guys, today I'm going to show a bit of the build I've been working on for the few days on beta. Since the last wipe, I started this character, which was a dual claw Reave Ranger. It is purely fizz based. It is two claws, just because I feel like being dual wield over shield gives you a bit of an easier time to scale up your DPS thanks to things like Twin Terrors and Ambidextrity. So decided to go dual claws. Makes you a bit squishier in some scenarios, but it really helps you up your clear speed and your attack speed in some circumstances. So right now I'm using two 1.3 attack speed claws, and as you can see, my attack speed and my whirling blades is pretty much the fastest I've ever had on any character. I have 10 reaves a second, and my whirling blades can go from one end of the map to the other almost instantly. A large part of this is because of 7 frenzy charges as well, which are insane and very worth getting in the beta these days. So the build itself is basically just scaling crit, some fizz nodes, some claw nodes, and some dual wield nodes. It's entirely fizz based, and I'm using Hatred along with Herald of Ice to proc my Assassin's Mark from Curse on Hit to keep up power charges. I've noticed that while using Herald of Thunder, I just don't shock anywhere near enough to actually trigger the Herald of Thunder anymore, so Herald of Ice seems to be the only real option to have a autopilot for power charges. Two claws I'm currently using are only about 180 DPS, and I'm on a 4-link, which I decided to go with faster attacks in my 4-link for Reave instead of added fire. I'm pretty sure added fire would be a far bigger DPS upgrade, but faster attacks just gives you faster stacks as well as not being any more of a threat to reflect, which kinda hurts in some situations. I'm not fully capped on resist because it's been pretty hard going for my gear, but it's definitely doable to cap your resist with the dual wield build. You just need a few good resist pieces, and that's a bit hard to come by when you've only just started beta again. But that said, the reflect not too big a deal at this stage. Maybe that's because I only have 180 DPS claws, and maybe that's because I'm only on a 4-link, but reflect not that bad. My leech that I get from the passive tree and from the claws, I have quite a substantial amount, as well as blood rage. Even with the nerfed leech, I have something like 5 or 6%, and it struggles sometimes, but for the most part it's okay. For clearing maps and all that, the leech seems to be just fine. When I took this character to its Zeri for the first time, even though it was not ready, just did it for the fun of it, I found the leech highly underwhelming when I was actually taking high amounts of damage like on the trio. I could not regen almost anything while attacking just through just about any of their attacks. So Valpact might be necessary on the higher stages for this build. You still have plenty of leech, so Valpact should be a pretty good option, and it's only a few points away. I'll leave the passive tree up for you guys to check it out and mess with yourself. And one other thing I'll mention, the reason most people are actually playing Reave right now is because it's a good bit better on quality of life on the beta than it is on live. And the way it's better is it only takes 4 stacks to get to the max amount of AoE instead of 8 like it currently is on live, and the AoE is still the same, so it takes half as much time to charge up, and you can also use skills in between your Reave stacks. So once you get to 4 Reave stacks, you can Whirling Blades and you will keep your Reave stacks. Whereas currently on live, if you get some stacks and go to your Whirling Blades, you lose all your stacks immediately, and it makes for a very clustered sort of playstyle. Whereas this is a lot smoother, and it doesn't let you feel too bad about your clear speed. So with that said, Reave actually seems to be a very, very strong and fast skill for clearing in general. On the current beta, it's probably, I say, if you build it well enough and have strong enough gear and all that, it's probably on par with Cyclone for clear speeds, if you can get it to those stages. So I'd say it's probably either on par with or second best melee skill right now. as far as melee characters are concerned. It's something between Cyclone, Ice Crash, and Reave for me, anyway. They're both the T1 melee skills. You can do this build with daggers, you can do it with swords. I'm not too sure how you're going to go with Leech on those builds, because Claws just takes care of it quite easily. I'm running off of strictly the Claw passive mana leech, which is something like 0.4%, and that seems to be more than enough to keep my mana alive against just about everything with a 4-link, even with my attack speed. I imagine it should be fine with a 5-link still. With a 6-link, you might have to start investing in some sort of other mana passives. I'm currently running a Belly of the Beast and a Rat's Nest as my unique items, also a Meganauds, but I'd like to replace that with something that has resists eventually. Rat's Nest seems to be a really good option, got high crit, and since my claws don't have that much crit, I kinda need it. And attack speed's always nice too, evasion's pretty good as well. My main forms of defense are evasion and acrobatics, so I have something like 30% evasion and 37% chance to dodge, I think, as well as Fortify attached to Juice Strike whenever I need to be just a little bit more tanky. Yeah, there's not too much more to say about the build. So far, the gear is pretty... On this character anyway, the gear is pretty modest. It can go a lot further, but I'm not quite convinced it's going to be steamrolling level 80, also maps. Just because damage starts to scale quite insanely on these monsters. And my character, in the long run, will probably have around 4.5k, maybe 5k life, and be mostly evasion and acrobatic based. For the early game, a character like this is pretty good. For the late game, I probably would not suggest it unless you have some serious gear coming your way, which you may well do. But this was the Dual Claw Crit Shadow, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you get something out of it, and experiment with your own Reave builds, because there's quite a few you can make, and many of them will have success. It's entirely up to you how you build these characters, but good luck to you, and see you next time.